I tried V0 for the first time a little over a year ago, and at the time, it failed miserably.
I'm confused. Why can't I prompt anymore? Is it me? Did I break it? Huh.
But I decided last week to give it another shot, and this time it blew my mind. Like most people, I've been dabbling in AI for a while now. In fact, I've given several keynote talks on the impact of AI on developer experience a few years ago, but honestly, I never could have imagined this. I can confidently say that V0, like other tools, is drastically changing the way that we build web applications forever. So if you haven't heard of V0, V0 is a generative UI tool created by Vercel. Now it provides a chat interface for you to ask questions, to prompt it to build web applications. Predominantly, it works with JavaScript, and specifically, you can imagine it works well with React and Next.js, given that Vercel is the creator of Next.js. But it also works with other frameworks like Vue, Svelte, and even other languages like Python. So those are the basics, but from what I found, V0 can do more, like a lot more. Not only can you use V0 to build front end UIs, you can also use it to build fully functioning full stack applications that integrate with other services like Supabase, Stripe, or LLMs like Grok. In this case, I'm going to share with you my experience in building my first application with V0, which integrates with all of those technologies. And at the end, I'll share a few tips and things I've learned that hopefully will help it make it even easier for you to work with V0 as you go forward as well. So here's what it looks like to get started. In V0, you just give it a prompt. And in this case, I basically said, like, give me a Next.js application that does these translation things, uses AI to handle translations. And this is a little bit different version of what I did originally. This is a more detailed version that I recorded after the fact that includes some of the more details that I wish I had had beforehand, which is how to structure the code and some of the more specifics of the application, etc. But then it goes through and it takes that prompt and it generates an application. You can see it works for a while and it builds a bunch of code. But the most cool thing, the really coolest thing, I don't know, that it works with other products like Supabase and Stripe. So in this case, it works directly with Supabase, which will set up your database, run SQL migration scripts, get everything set up inside of Supabase. Then inside the code, it will leverage that to do authentication and database stuff, etc. And then also I wanted to use AI, so I needed an LLM, and it went and set up an account with Grok behind the scenes. It's actually a formal integration in Vercel, and the pricing is handled through Vercel as well. So all that stuff being directly integrated means that I could build a fully functioning application out of the box really quickly with V0 and have all the stuff tied together, which is super, super cool. Now, one of the really cool things though is because this is all integrated together, if there's an error, you can actually tell V0 to go ahead and fix that error. So this is one case where an error popped up, it recognized it, it gave me the option to have it fix it for myself. It generated some code, it walked through everything it needed to do, and it went and fixed that problem, which is super, super cool. So after over 100 iterations, here is where I landed on this app. Now I want to work on the marketing part for the landing page. I eventually or originally had translation stuff just right here on the landing page, but I decided to move that behind a dashboard gated login situation. So I still need to work on the marketing here, but you can sign in. I've got an account here. I'll use one password for my password. Sign in. I'm taken to my dashboard. You can see that on the free account, you have 5 translations per day. So this actually like saves all the translations in the database, and then you can it will reset every day. So let's say I want you to make a video for me. That's not super specific, but in this case, my goal with this is to like learn language deeper, better, etc. So I want to not only say English to Spanish, but also pick a region. I specifically am interested in Argentinian Spanish, and then multiple translation styles: informal, casual, formal, slang, etc. So I click translate. That is making LLM call to Grok. That will come back with results, and we can see those here. So that's super cool. From there, we can see this in our. Actually, there's a bug in login. I think I need to refresh. I don't know how to. If anybody's seen this before, to track the login state change in an auth provider from the Supabase like callback. So that's something I need to look into. But inside the history tab, I can see a history of my translations and each individual style that I chose. So you can see this here. And actually, this is all of these with the different styles. This goes back to a previous day, but it didn't count against my daily translations because, again, this is per day. So I can go back to, or I have history. I can go back to the dashboard, which is where I actually do translations. And then in the account is where I can do an upgrade to my account if I want to. So I can upgrade the plan. This will actually take me to a Stripe checkout. So it generates, actually, once I get here, generates a Stripe checkout session. This will take me to Stripe, and here I can go ahead and subscribe. So interestingly, I don't know the best way, like, is the only way to test that your deployed application works in Stripe is just to pay real money. Like that's kind of weird to me that like you can test locally, which totally makes sense using 424242 if you've seen that. But you can't do that inside of your deployed application. So I don't know the best way to like test this out without just paying money myself. Anyway, so that works pretty cool, or pretty good. I think this turned out for just experimenting with this for the first time, this worked out really well. But there were several things that I learned along the way that I think would make an incredible difference if I were to do this again. So let's talk about some of the things that I've learned and some tips that you can use to hopefully improve your process if you're going to go through and want to build an application with V0 or similar other tools. So you can see I've gone through and I've got 112 different iterations of this. I think the number one tip I would give you is to be more prepared up front. So to have more information about what exactly you want this thing to look like, what exactly you want the functionality to be, what exactly the style for your code should be. In this case, like one of the things I didn't do was define in Next.js, I want to use Next.js 15. I want to use server actions as much as possible. I want to use server components as much as possible. And if you don't do that, it'll give you a mix of all of these things. It'll just kind of throw out code in different formats. So that is the first thing I would do is clarify upfront, what does the code look like? What does the architecture look like? What does the design look like? And what is the functionality that you want to start with? Now, one of the tips for that is to start by using an LLM or an agent of some sort to have a conversation about what you want to build to start to build out the plan that then you can pass to V0. So you could go to ChatGPT and just brainstorm, hey, I'd like to build an app. What are your thoughts on like what are the features? How do we encourage people to upgrade? What prices should we charge? What should the features be that people pay for? Have that conversation first and really build out that checklist of here's exactly what I want that you can then pass to V0. I think that would make an incredible difference. Now, one of the things I would also recommend is minimizing as much as possible how much you ask it to do at one time. One of the things that I saw over and over again is I would ask it to change something here, and it would go and change like how we make API calls in a different file or how the UI looked in a different part. So I would clarify exactly where you want code to be changed, and I would often and probably almost every time say without making any changes, give me a proposal for how you would make this change or what this change would look like because I found it doing things at times that I didn't want it to do. And I wish I would have had the opportunity to approve that before. Now, in certain things, like if I'm using GitHub Copilot chat in VS Code, it gives me the option to see what those changes are and approve them step by step, line by line, file by file. I haven't really had that experience in V0. I don't know if that's something that they're going to add. Because of that, I would ask, hey, give me a proposal of what you would change, where, how, etc., and make sure you're very clear on what its expectations are and what your expectations are before it actually changes code. Now, the thing I didn't figure out until a while in is that you can actually integrate with GitHub. So I would recommend doing this from the start, and I would recommend like getting a branch set up that you can experiment with. Now, if you're outside of a main branch, so if you create in this case like a dev branch, it's going to automatically sync changes to and from that branch. So the reason this is super important is sometimes for me, it's a lot easier to get outside of the V0 window to look at code because this is nice, but it's not my full editor experience and pull that code down inside of VS Code so I can run locally, make changes, and really get a feel for what's going on there. Now, I will say I didn't do any code until half or three quarters of the way there or through. So you can get a long way without writing any code at all, but you really want to be active in that process, especially as a developer, to make sure that it's doing things in a way that makes sense. What I ended up doing is after going through all these iterations of generating code, I pulled down the code and I was running and I realized all these mistakes of like formatting and structure and architecture of just things that I wouldn't have done that way. So again, having that clarity up front of like, this is exactly the architecture and the best practices and the things I want you to follow is absolutely important to set that standard to begin with. And that's why I think going like piece by piece and chunk by chunk is super, super important so that you have that consistency throughout the application. I spent probably several hours going back and editing code that I wouldn't have needed to edit, I don't think, had I been more clear and been more granular along the way. And that goes back to, again, just reiterating, have it do small pieces at a time so that you can be a part of that approval process throughout. Now, another thing I realized is inside of my environment variables, it does something kind of interesting. So it will auto populate a lot of these environment variables. But what happens if you look inside of here, you've got a lot of these that are applied to all environments. These are the ones that are automatically generated through these integrations. So the Supabase stuff, the Stripe stuff, the Grok stuff, etc. What's interesting about this is that it's locked down to only apply to all variables or all environments. And this makes it a little bit of a challenge to go from like a testing environment or a previewed environment to a production environment. And so I don't really know what that exact workflow should be. I just think it's a little bit odd that this locks it down and makes it apply to all environments, because obviously I would want to have a different Supabase environment for testing versus prod, a different Stripe environment for testing versus prod. So I'm not really sure what the best practice here is. Just know that when it applies those environment variables for you by default, it's going to apply those to all environments. Now, I think the real use case is you go and create a separate project inside of Vercel. You create your environment variables there, and then maybe you create all of your stuff there and just move the deployment to a new one that you copy over these environment variables and manage your different environments. I'm not really sure, but just know that I think that's one of the things that was a stumbling block for me. You should know that it's there, and maybe if you have suggestions on like what that workflow is, leave some comments in the comments below about like what is your ideal workflow, knowing about how they handle these integrations, direct integrations, and environment variables, etc. So anyway, that's my experience building my first application with V0. I've already started a new one. I am really looking to like get better at the process, like really defining that upfront scope for an application, really being more articulate and building out a list of rules for how I want Next.js applications to be, how I want folders to be structured, what patterns I want to follow, etc. And I think that will help me be able to build just continuously more and more. So that's my first experience with V0, drastically different. Well, first experience recently, drastically different than the very negative experience I had like a year and a half or 2 years ago. So I'm super, super excited about it. Let me know what you're excited about. If you're working on something, share that in the comments below. And if you have any tips and tricks or things you've learned in working with V0, share those in the comments below so everyone else can benefit from it as well. Anyways, I appreciate you checking out the video, and I'll catch you next time.